This is a quick video about marginal functions. This is a fairly big topic in survey of calculus with Excel, and it makes sense to kind of talk about what we are trying to measure here. Marginal functions actually come from business and are a very standard tool of looking at functions there. So the question from business that kind of gives rise to these kind of formulas and problems are, for instance, what happens to revenue if we produce one more item? What happens to cost if we produce one more item? Or profit? And the question about the change in these functions is what is called marginal functions. So you will talk about marginal revenue, marginal cost, marginal profit. And what we are asking is what happens to the function f if we increase the input x by 1 unit? So if we produce one more item, what happens to the revenue? If we produce one more item, what happens to the profit? So to make it really precise, for instance, with marginal cost, the marginal cost at x is the marginal cost of producing the x plus first item. We write that down as marginal cost of x plus 1. And the formula that you use to compute it is the cost of x plus 1 minus the cost of x. Now that's a whole lot of x's, so do that with a couple of numbers. If we want to know the marginal cost at x equals 10, then what we are really asking is, what is the marginal cost of producing the 11th item? And that would be written in mathematics as, and in business terms, as marginal cost of 11. And that is the cost of producing 11 items minus the cost of producing 10. So I wanted to go through one specific example where, for instance, if the cost is given by 40 plus 3q plus q squared over 10. Suppose that this is the cost in thousands of dollars for some business where they're creating some item. What are the marginal costs at 11 and the marginal cost of 26? Well, we would want to compute these, and so what I did was I used Excel with that function cost and q, and I pulled out what happened at the cost at 10, 11, and at 25 and at 26. And you would then find that the marginal cost of 11 is the cost of producing 11 items minus the cost of producing 10. So that in this case would be 85.1 minus 80. And so the marginal cost would then be that difference, the 5.1. So you would say that producing that 11th item would have an associated cost of $5.1 thousand. The marginal cost at 26 is the cost of 26 minus the cost of 25, which happens to be 185.6 minus 177.5. And so producing that 26th item would have a marginal cost associated with it of $8.1 thousand. So we see here that the marginal cost early on in the production is a little smaller. It doesn't cost as much to produce that 11th item as it does to produce the 26th. Now cost is one thing, but what would that do, for instance, to profit, which is always a bottom line in business? So for example, suppose that the profit function is negative 0.5q squared plus 30q minus that cost function from the previous page. And again, suppose we are talking about thousands of dollars. Now, what are the marginal profit of 11 and the marginal profit of 26? Well, we compute the profit function at 10 and 11 and at 25 and 26. Then the marginal profit at 11 is equal to the profit at 11 minus the profit at 10, which is 184.4 minus 170, which is $14.4 thousand. So creating that 11th item makes sense. It will generate an additional profit on top of what you already had of $14.4 thousand. At 26, it is slightly different. There, the profit of 26 minus the profit at 25 items is 256.4 minus 260, which is a negative 3.6. Well, that's kind of bad news, because that means that if you were to take your production at 25 units, increase it to 26, this is actually a bad business decision, because you are now incurring a loss of $3.6 thousand for your business. So this would tell you, for instance, that if you are producing 10, you should go ahead and produce 11. Your business would be better for it. If you're at 25, do not produce that extra item, because it's going to give you an actual loss in order to do that.